Okay, well, let's go back to in the mountains of Southern California, and he offers you a staff position in the
Right,
church?
right.
Okay.
And so I took it, and frankly, it required the cult work involved a lot of just taking care of John Roger for one thing. But there were services that they provided to the church members that had to do with aura balancing, polarity balancing, interphasings.
So you were trained on all
I was
this?
trained on this stuff. Right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
aura balance is a very interesting one. You just use a crystal and a chain, and you would cleanse people's auras. And the third aura balancing had to do with a conversational process, which was very much like confession. Like if you would come in, you'd be lying on a table, and I'd be doing my crystal above you, and then over this center here, which is the chakras. If there's ever a time you did something or created something that you didn't feel good about, what comes to mind? And you're supposed to just say whatever comes to mind. I'm sorry, this was, if you ever felt disappointed or let down of this chakras, if you've ever had a time where you saw something that disturbed you, what comes to mind? And you'd say something. And I would find out over the course of doing this for 10 years that whenever it came to this chakra, 99% of the time, people were dealing with helplessness. When you see something that is tragic, the judgment comes, I should be able to do something here. They can't. So the judgment is, I'm not enough, or whatever else. And all the things, all those levels, they were incredibly good for uncovering things in people's. So those kind of services.
These are the spiritual experiences people are having.
Exactly. So when people came in and got these services, they came back year after year because they were very powerful for them. I mean, one of the things I learned.
And would they pay for them? Is this?
They would pay, I think it was $70 people would pay for an hour.
Okay. Okay.
And there were the inner core, the 5 people, the men that were kind of hanging around. And here, let's just go over this inner core of staff members who are all young men, wholesome, all non-homosexual, but all have turned. Why would John Roger just go with homosexual men? Why would he?
You said they were not
They
homosexual?
were not.
But they turned?
Yeah. And I would even say they weren't even turned. But why would he go with this instead of just collecting any number of the homosexuals?
I don't know.
I'll tell you why.
Okay, go for it.
It has nothing to do with sex. It has to do with control.
Yeah.
It has to do with absolute, and what more control can you exercise over another human being than to change their sexual orientation? I would be driving his limousine around, and he would say, well, there's Michael so-and-so. He's gay, but he doesn't know it yet. I thought to myself, God, how do people not know they're gay or not?
So from the start, he was known to be a gay man, John Roger?
John Roger was a closet gay. He would absolutely, if you want to know, in my view, who John Roger was, do you ever see the movie Brokeback Mountain?
Yeah, I have.
Remember the scene where the man walks down into the gully, this guy has been killed. He's got 2 boys on either side. He's going down to show them what will happen when and if they become gay. Very powerful moment. John Roger is one of those little boys, in my view. And he had gotten a very strong sense in Rains, Utah, it doesn't even exist anymore, that, whatever his natural proclivities were absolutely demonic and to be put away. So he was sick in that way. But he found, in my view, again, these are just my points of view, he found a way he could then control himself and control others, and made a spiritual practice of manipulating people this way.
So you were part of this group of young, handsome ministers.
And the lie, and let's talk about the lie, because all of these kind of cults, the destructive cults, are built on lies. We, the staff members, were this wholesome set of young men who people looked up to. And why their image of us is that we were all celibate, because that's what they were told.
Okay.
So we traveled with this man. We were all this holy. We were like 6 of the 12 disciples, if you will.
Yeah.
I just know what my view of them, when I hadn't even gotten in yet, I looked at these guys and said, my God, look at this. I mean, how could you, these perfect, being right next to the traveler. I mean, it was like holiness. But people didn't know that there's kind of a sexual slavery going on in the center of it. This is like, what's his name, who just got hung in the New York jail. It's just like that, only you've got a spiritual guru that is preening these people to be able to serve them. It's sick.
So outside of that, well, you're flying all over the country, the world, even as in this
We
position.
traveled first class. We had vows of poverty, but we had a
And did you,
travel agency that just catered to us. In fact, the church owned a travel agency, and anybody that he wanted to travel would be given these travel agency cards. So then the hotels would give us all our rooms at half price. We traveled at discount rates. I mean, who else? I mean, we as staff members left Charles de Gaulle Airport at 9:42 one morning and landed in New York at 5:42 the same morning. That's how we traveled. I mean, it's supersonic.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's an amazing thing to be in the Concorde.
yeah.
But I had no money. I wasn't able to travel anywhere unless I was given authorization to do so. When
And
I
wh-
left the
and-
movement, I had nothing.
And what were you doing all over the world?
Again, we had people, we would do insight seminars in London,
Okay.
and I would go to South America. The church was growing. Australia was growing all over the place with this secular recruiting arm, which was the personal growth seminar that we had stolen from LifeSpring. Word for word. In fact, we took one of their LifeSpring trainers, Russell Bishop, and John Rogers pulled him over. He was one of JR's ministers.
Yeah.
So we just duplicated
Yeah.
LifeSpring, called it Insight, and then we changed a few things.
So the church, the MSIA took the trainings from another group and turned it into what they called insight, and then they took their religious practices from another group and turned it into their own.
Right, and all these aura balances were stolen from another group.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah, yeah. Just
everything.
rebranding
Just
same
called.
kind of
He
thing.
is a
Yeah.
walking Xerox machine. Everything that works, he would collect it, then claimed he had came up with it. But incidentally, MSI is very hard to say. They had originally called it Messiah,
I see.
which should have been my first clue.
Yeah.
But they stopped doing that when the cult thing came up around the LA Times started to do the expose. Then they decided it wasn't good to call it Messiah.
Inside once you were one of the staff, then it was traveling around first class and doing these seminars and that was your life. Like what if you wanted to go home for a holiday or something like
I
that?
didn't see
Visit
my
your
folks
parents?
for 8 years.
Oh, no kidding.
I wouldn't even think of putting my parents in front of my work. I was like, the thing is with JR is that if you don't, I was doing a seminar in Israel, conducting one of these seminars, and I had a telegram from my mother saying that my father was dying, I need to get back home. And so I told JR, I said, we got the rest of the staff, they can do this. I'd like to go back home. And my ministry is there. His response is, well, you can go, but you're putting personal things in the way of the work, and you won't be returning. I thought to myself, well, I mean, I know I'm not going to fly back here. It's pretty expensive to come back. No, he says, to staff. So he's going to fire me from my staff position because I was going to go home to be with my father, who was dying. Even I woke up at that point. This is after 9 years of being with this guy, working with him, loving, trusting, everything else just completely. And I figured, this isn't right.
What did you do?
I went and got a ticket and flew back to my father's, stayed with him for 10 days. He was mostly comatose. And I read a book called Life Between Death and Rebirth by Rudolf Steiner, a series of lectures. Because when I was watching my dad die, I thought to myself, okay, what's going to happen to him? What is the experience when a person dies? And I must say, I looked at the entire experience of my missionary upbringing and everything I'd learned from John Roger in the 10 years. There was nothing. I mean, what do you know? What do you know about what's going to happen when you die?
Well, I would say if you grew up in the mission, you believed you were going to heaven.
Okay, but what is that? I mean, even that. What's your mental image of that?
In the Christian faith, it's paradise. You probably have your body back, and you're just enjoying being with lost loved ones, and you have no needs because, like food or anything, because you're perfect or you're. It doesn't get too specific, I guess, as far as what you do with your time.
Because there's nothing in the Bible that makes it specific. So it's like you're given nothing, basically. This is the part of faith when it really comes down to it.
Mm-hmm.
When you die, you better have it. Because frankly, you aren't given any notice about, okay, at this point you stop breathing, and all of a sudden then you don't have any answer to that. And this book, The Life Between Death and Rebirth, this series of lectures, was kind of like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, only with modernized.
Mm-hmm.
So at the point you take your legs, you end up expanding out, and the entire process is described about what time, by the time you leave, you die, to the time you incarnate again.
So you read these to your father.
My father's sitting there dying for these 10 days. I was the night shift because I was on Israel time anyway. My mother was a nurse, but she was taking Dad during the daytime, and we both watched him die. When John Roger came around, having flown back from Israel with the rest of the staff, and they came through Minneapolis to do these services, right? I wasn't doing them. But he had clearly had a olive branch out,
Mm-hmm.
I learned what I had to learn, I guess. At this point, I was extremely valuable to the organization. I was doing seminars for free, mind you. I calculated that the seminars I conducted in the last year I was with the movement and with Inside brought in $750,000,
Mm-hmm.
for which I was paid zero. Now, admittedly, it was expensive. They flew me around and stuff. I had to be fed.
Yeah.
But when I met with John Roger in Minneapolis and told him I wasn't going to come back, suddenly he turned.
Yeah.
The rest of the staff members, and there's a whole crew then because they were returning from Israel. There must have been 10, 12 people. He said, well, Victor, if you can't understand for me what's going on, why don't you listen to your colleagues? I had to listen as each of these are my closest friends. These are the people I'm back to back with for 10 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But these people are people who see a vacuum is taking place right next to John Roger, and their job is to take me down in a sufficient fashion that he would actually respect them and their loyalty. It's like Trump.
That's expected?
That is like Trump. I mean, when I see this happening politically, it nauseates me because I see the same thing that happened to me. And they went through and chewed me to pieces. I left. They
chewed you to pieces for leaving, or because you're an ex-member?
Well, they used it. No, I wasn't an ex-member yet.
I thought they wanted you to leave though, so they could have your spot.
Well, no, it's nothing quite so obvious as that. It's just like they would never admit to themselves that they actually were lusting after my spot, or were envious enough to want it. They're only. Actually, I was probably at that time one person away from the one guy who's to be the next traveler. So I was up there.
Wow. But there was no salary paid to any one of you guys?
No, we had vows of poverty. Like I said, there was zero money. So then they began to take my wallet, my Hue ring, everything I was wearing.
You mean off your body?
Off my body. And I left, as I recall.
Tell me, let's go back to this. Where was this held? Where did this happen? In your home?
In the Marriott, downtown Minneapolis. That's where they were staying.
In the lobby or what?
No, they had taken this big suite upstairs.
Okay, so that's where this.
So this whole thing took place in a room that was about a little bit bigger than this.
Yeah.
And they were just circled around, and they just.
And are they all wearing suits? Was it that kind of
organization?
organization?
I mean, it was more casual because they were between.
Okay.
This was like probably the day they were traveling, and I've just told them, no, I'm not going back.
Yeah.
And that is like a shock repercussion that is like nothing else in the movement. When you take one of his leading staff members and he says he's not returning, it's like, that's a serious enema to a cult, let me tell you. I mean, it is like seriously. That's like when people around here run down and buy up all of Costco's toilet paper. I mean, it becomes a shock like this.
So what were they saying to you? Why were they chewing you out?
Well, it wasn't. It's like this. They have to show to John Roger how loyal they are. And by being loyal to him, they have to perceive in me the defects that are making me not make the right choice now.
Okay.
So that's the attitude that they're going about this. That's surgically going in there. But they have permission now, because John Rogers has given up on me, to do whatever surgery they want, mentally, emotionally, or whatever. I knew that there was no limit. That's when at that point, you're pretty much dissolved in tears, waiting for the last person to get done so you can take your departure. As I remember, I had to borrow money to get my mother's car to the parking lot.
Did you know at that point, like, were they trying to get you back, or was it
Well, John Roger had given up on me at that
Okay. So then
So it was
this was
then-
the farewell.
This is the farewell, if you will.